Okay, so let's talk about the what in terms of what kind of format we need to be applying. So before we were talking about the how in terms of how we're supposed to be putting together the information, right? We're supposed to be making sure that our grammar is correct and our vocabulary is substantial enough that we're able to express our messages well. We're supposed to be making sure that we're using transition words and expressions. Okay, so that's how we're supposed to speak. But then in this case, it's like, okay, what do I use in order to put all that information together in an organized fashion? Here it is, the format. So you have to do an introduction, a first supporting idea, a second supporting idea, a third supporting idea. That's only if you have the time. If you feel like you have the time, if you feel like it's okay, it's not necessary at all. It really isn't. Do not even worry about that. We prefer our students to use just two supporting ideas, okay? And obviously, yes, of course, your conclusion. So this is basically the whole format. In your introduction, you kind of have to give a little bit of a preamble, so it's you don't really go straight into the answer. So if the question is, where would you like to live? Don't go straight into, I want to live in Medellin. Give a little bit of a preamble, something that kind of makes the examiner feel like, oh, I cannot wait for what this person's going to say because this person's giving me some information that's like kind of interesting. So you would say something like, wow, there are so many different cities around the world that a lot of people would love to live in, and a lot of those cities would be in different countries that you would find in Europe, for example. But me personally, I would love to live in Medellin. Boom, that's your introduction. And guess what? You just gave a really substantial, greatly formulated and constructed response just right there. Then after that, you would need to give your supporting ideas, right? Now, of course, keep in mind, you only have 45 seconds to respond to this. So at the same time, you do kind of have to speak a little bit fast. You really cannot take your time too much because, as they said, you cannot use a lot of fillers. So you can't spend most of the time going, So your supporting ideas have to be so clear in your head, so unbelievably clear that they just come out. They just blurt out like inertia. You know, it's just natural to you. It just comes natural. So if you chose Medellin, your first supporting idea would be for the following reasons. Firstly, I believe that Medellin is probably the most innovative city in the world, and it was proven so a couple of years ago when we won that award. Right there. You could just stop right there if you want, and that would be a perfectly good response. Your second supporting idea would be something like, secondly, or you could say something else like, in addition to that, I would say that Medellin is definitely one of Latin America's most beautiful cities. We have gorgeous mountain ranges, not to mention gorgeous women. Furthermore, the people that we have here in the city itself are very warm and very nice to foreigners from all around the nation. Sorry, from all around the world. Okay, so again, as I said before, supporting idea number 3, I would stay away from supporting idea number 3 because you have to keep in mind the 45 seconds. All right, you don't have enough time for supporting idea number 3, so forget about that one. Really, I have not seen the first person to actually go into a supporting idea number 3 and substantiate it with experiences and reasons and examples and all that kind of stuff, and still have enough time to give a conclusion. So let's just continue with the conclusion. Your conclusion is basically the same thing as you did in the introduction. It's basically the same as your response. However, you have to give it a different kind of wording, so it cannot be the exact repeated thing from the introduction. So you would say something like, for those particular reasons, or you could say something like, in conclusion, based on what I had just mentioned before, there's lots of other expressions that we could use. We'll go into the specific signal words or transition words and expressions in other classes, but you could use some of these. So you could say something like, in conclusion, based on the information that I had mentioned before, I would definitely say that Medellin is probably the best city to live in. Okay, so now that we've seen what TOEFL response would be like, and again, this is pretty much the kind of response that you would give for questions 1 and questions 2, for the independent choice response and the paired choice response. It's pretty much the same thing. The only difference is that with the paired choice response, you would need to maybe give one little extra sentence, which is, oh, well, I would choose Medellin, because maybe they might give you some specific choices. Would you like to live in Medellin or in Cali or in Bucaramanga? Then in that case, you would say, all these cities seem pretty cool, but I would definitely choose Medellin. And then from there, you would just continue with the information that I had given you before in terms of your supporting idea 1 and supporting idea 2, and then in your conclusion, basically, right? Excuse me, sorry. All right, so let's continue on with the response for the question that I had asked you before, okay? Question 1, free choice response. If you could live anywhere, where would you live? Use reasons to support your response. So, now let's look at a video which explains everything in detail, okay? All right, so for the independent choice and for the pair choice, it is basically the same form of preparation, okay? This is something that we have established before. We just talked about it in the video. Okay, so now let's continue with the preparation itself for that same question, okay? If you have only 15 seconds, you have to use keywords, all right? This is something that I didn't mention before because I was, trying to give you like the superficial format. But now we're going to go into details. And the details for the preparation is basically you have to use keywords because, again, you only have 15 seconds. That's nothing. That's like no time whatsoever. I mean, can you imagine preparing anything whatsoever in 15 seconds with a lot of information? It's impossible. So you have to use keywords. So the keywords here would just be basically this. Your answer is Cartagena, right? So if your answer is Cartagena, your reason 1 would be the weather. Your reason 2 would be nightlife, okay? So this is the kind of format that you have to have written on your piece of paper immediately before the question even begins, before they even tell you you have 15 seconds to prepare. Right? So they'll give you a piece of paper and a pencil in the real exam, okay? So don't even worry about it. You don't have to take paper and pencil to the exam. If you want, you can do that, but they'll have a paper and pencil ready for you just in case, okay? So on your paper, you already have to have this kind of column ready so that you can begin writing these kinds of specific details, okay? So in this case, where do you want to live? Cartagena. Reason 1, weather. Reason 2, nightlife. And then if you have some time, you might make some examples. Sunny, windy, fresh, for the fact that you chose weather. The second examples would be restaurants, fancy clubs, because of the fact that you chose nightlife. And then after that, you would write your conclusion, right? You don't have to write your conclusion here. You just basically have to draw an arrow back to the answer, Cartagena. This tells you that, okay, I have to go back to that response, but then I have to give it a different wording. That's something that I explained to you before. So this would be the kind of planning that you would need to use, okay? Hopefully this is clear for you guys. Okay, so ladies, now it's your turn. This means I'm going to give you guys your activity for this virtual video training class, okay? So what you guys have to do is the following. I just showed you the planning, right? And earlier, I showed you how to give it a response in terms of this planning, right? I mean, I told you that, oh, I would love to live in Medellin because of this reason, because it's innovative and whatever, and that, right? So I basically executed everything that we had done here, right? But then I had done it in a more verbal sense, right? So I mean, if you want, go back to that part so that you can hear it again, so that you can see pretty much more or less how I did the whole thing. So this is what you have to do. If you guys want, look for the questions in the what's it called, in the website. You guys remember that website that I sent you in class? It was about the new questions, the new adapted TOEFL questions that was created for 2015 up. Right, and it was talking about those 3 different topics. The first one was about giving advice to a friend, social political controversies, and then the 3-option prompt. Right, before it was the 2-option prompt, and that's why it was called paired choice response. I mean, the question is still called paired choice response, but now we have paired choice responses, and now we have 3-option prompts. So you could get one of each. I mean, who knows? It depends on the simulation that you guys get. So I want you guys to do 5 of these, okay? Choose 5 questions. 5 questions. 5 for Eliana, 5 for Laura, all right? And do 5 preparations. We want to see those preparations. We want to see how well you guys are preparing. We want to see the kind of information, the kind of vocabulary, the kind of keywords that you're applying into those preparations. That's what we want to see. So send us those 5 preparations and then send us the 5 speak-ins. It has to be with the specific timeline guidelines of the TOEFL. So 15 seconds to prepare and 45 seconds to speak. That's what you have to do for each one. We expect you guys to time yourselves because, again, at the end of the day, this is exactly what the real test is going to be like, okay? If you guys have absolutely any questions, any doubts, or any concerns, please let us know. And again, we really hope that you enjoyed this video, okay? As you can see, it has some pretty cool editing and stuff like that. We had talked about this before, I want to start doing these kinds of things, and I actually feel like really happy about it, okay? But, I would also like your feedback, okay? So if there's anything in particular that you would like to suggest for me in terms of the videos, please let us know, okay? Because at the end of the day, this is something that we just started implementing with you and with everyone else. So, there might be some things that we need to improve. Maybe there are some things that we need to dial down on a little bit, or maybe there are some things that we need to give more in terms of the classes. But you let us know, okay? If there's any feedback that you would like to give us, we are more than welcome to consider it, okay? Ladies, have a very good night. And listen, by the way, for Saturday, we will send you the other video, okay? We were pretty much only planning on this one video because honestly we were convinced that we were going to be having class today, and then the whole situation happened. But Laura, it's okay, we understand. I mean, things happen. But because of that, we'll be sending you the second video by this weekend, okay? Either by Saturday or by the end of the weekend, we'll be sending you the other video, okay? But you'll have this video in your inbox by Friday, basically. Bye.